Hey guys, what's going on? It's Gunnar here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a little bit of a break from the food plot stuff. You know, we've been consistently kicking out some videos on food plots, which are important, but like I always say, it's kind of the icing at the top of the cake. Your native browse, your cover, and your pressure element of things are going to be far ahead of your food plot program and what you're planting in the fall time, in the springtime, in the summertime. You might be able to hear the neighbor over here behind me cutting some hay. So I apologize if you hear that in the audio, but we're gonna keep it rolling here. Today, I wanna talk a little bit about switchgrass. Now, this stand of switch in particular, we've had it for about 10 years. Now, anybody that knows switch knows it can be kind of difficult to establish if not done properly, but it's pretty easy to maintain once you got a nice clean stand. It doesn't have a lot of problems coming back year after year if you maintain it properly. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we do that and the benefits of having switchgrass and how it can help you here. So basically the layout of this scenario here, this patch of switch, I would say this is roughly 1/4 of an acre. So it's not a huge piece, but it's in the perfect location. Now what we've got here is I've got an inside corner. This field comes out about 40 yards away from me, and this was basically sitting empty. Now we initially had a food plot in here, but the way that we hunt this property, it doesn't necessarily set up correctly for us to have food in this location. We've got a lot of good rut cruising stands right on this knob. So basically what we were looking for is to kind of pull those deer a little bit farther off that knob, and we wanted to pull them up on this top. So with a food plot, yes, you're going to attract deer and you're going to have a little bit of a line of movement that is created from a good bedding point through this food plot and then out into the ag. But what I was looking for is I wanted a good rut location that would pull deer up on this top so I could hunt deer in the morning. This is a perfect morning situation. I can hunt anywhere on this top with the rising thermals, blow it over that bedding knob, and I'm good to go all morning because those thermals are rising, taking my scent up and over into the valley, so those deer are never gonna catch me. And basically what switchgrass or cover in general is gonna do is it's gonna pull deer farther close to those edge areas. So anytime you add cover into an area, you can compare this to a corn versus a bean ear. Me in particular, I've got a rut location, and on corn ears, those deer come right by that stand. It's maybe 30 yards into the timber, and those deer feel secluded and they feel comfortable because they have that corn acting as more cover in a sense, because it's 7-8 feet tall. That's plenty enough for a deer to feel secure. When you're talking about cover, you don't need 10, 12, 15 feet of screen cover to make deer feel comfortable. That's not the case. All you need is anything above deer head level and up a couple feet. That's what I found to be adequate for deer cover. But basically that situation is when it's a bean ear, those deer are farther down into the timber because they're creating more distance where there's a lack of cover. So cover and distance are basically the same thing. If you can double up on your cover in an area, deer are gonna pull up a little closer to that edge because they feel more secure. Now, if you don't have cover in an area, they're gonna create distance because lack of cover and pressure are going to make deer create distance. So think about it that way. The more cover, the closer those deer are gonna pull to those edges, so you can take advantage of that just like we did right here. So as soon as we added this cover in here, deer are just naturally pulling up a little closer. They're coming up closer to this ag field, this field edge, because they have dense cover right along here. They don't have a wide open food plot that they can see 40, 50 yards out into the ag field. These deer want, and what they're looking for is screening cover. They can feel like they're separated from other deer. They have to go work through all this cover to, say, find a doe during the rut. So it forces them to work a little harder and cover some more ground, and then at the same time feel more comfortable spending time up in here, even though it is 30, 40, 50 yards right off this field edge. It feels bigger because there's really good cover throughout here. Now I've got some hinge cuts and just some flush cuts of aspen right over here as well that's blowing up excellent with a lot of blackberry briars and some prickly ash and a lot of other native stuff. There's some invasives in there, but I've been attacking those pretty heavy in the springtime when those start to green up. But so basically to get this switchgrass established, what we did is we came in and we sprayed it that first year. We sprayed it in the fall, and then I went ahead and I frost seeded this in February or March, and I'm allowing those seeds to work their way into the topsoil. So this was all frost seeded, and then that first year or two, you're not gonna get a lot of growth. But the way that we managed it is we're coming in here with the mower deck raised all the way up, and we're clipping the tops of those weeds. That's the biggest thing when it comes to getting a switchgrass stand established, is controlling the weeds. Because as switchgrass is a warm season native grass, those cool season grasses can easily overtake switchgrass because it's not starting to grow until 50 degrees soil temp. So that's something we got to remember. There's a lot of times where it doesn't reach a 50-degree soil temp, but there's growing days, and those cool season grasses are starting to take off, and they can easily choke out that native switchgrass. So that's number one. That's important, keeping those weeds clipped down so that switchgrass has a chance to grow and get established. Now, that's what we're doing for the first 2 years. Now, I'm probably mowing 2 to 3, potentially 4 times that first year, just because I really want that young switchgrass to get established in a lot of areas around here. I don't want thick spots and I don't want thin spots. So I want to make sure that there's no weeds in here, or virtually very little, and I'm keeping those very low to the ground so I can identify my switchgrass, and it's getting a good head start on that first year, because that's a really important year to get a good crop as we go through this progression. Now, year 2, I might only be mowing once or twice, and then say middle of June, beginning of July is going to be my last mowing, and then I'm just allowing this switchgrass to then take off. If you've been managing your weeds and mowing them very well, that second year, after 1 or 2 mowings that second year, that switchgrass should start to become established. It should get to about 2.5, 3 feet that year. So year 2 is really important as well, because that switchgrass is just starting to get to that height where you can't necessarily get that mower deck all the way up without clipping that switch, and that's not what I want to do. I want to make sure that I'm clipping those weeds, but I'm not harming that switchgrass. So year 2, it's starting to get a little bit too tall to manage it that way, but if you've been doing it correctly that first year and those first couple of mowings on year 2, your switchgrass stand should be starting to take off. Now, year 3, you should be pretty okay. You shouldn't have to mow virtually at all. I don't necessarily mow any of my stands after year 2 because I have managed them properly, and honestly, I don't need to. They're virtually weed-free, or very little weeds, where the switchgrass isn't going to get harmed by having a little bit of a weed competition because it's already established and it's pretty hardy. Years 3 and up and counting, your maintenance is virtually 0. Now, after 3 years, usually I'll wait to about year 5 on a new stand, and then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to actually do a controlled burn on this switchgrass. Now, here you can see we burned this 2 springs ago. We didn't burn it last year, 2 springs ago. But basically what you want to do is you're trying to eliminate a lot of the mat that starts to build up after years and years of dying switchgrass that's just kind of rotting away and laying there. But it's actually kind of a cool thing, is because switchgrass is virtually its own cover crop, because you'll have dying stalks. This patch actually is still standing from last year. It was a pretty mild winter, but a lot of the time switchgrass will stay standing throughout the winter months because it's got that real stiff stalk, and it's pretty hardy to wind and snow and any of the elements when you're getting into the northern climates like we are here in Wisconsin. But like I said, it's virtually its own cover crop. You got dying stalks. As they start to tip over and fall, you're basically having a weed suppressing mat on the ground, and that switchgrass is already established, so it's basically acting as the same as my food plot system, with that standing rye rolling it over, allowing that next crop to come up through. This switchgrass is basically doing the same thing, but it's naturally doing it, so that's a pretty cool thing. But what we're doing is we're burning this. We're doing a controlled burn every 3 to 5 years, usually on year 5 after a new stand has been being established. But basically all I'm doing is I'm trying to regenerate a lot of that switchgrass that over time will start to thin out a little bit. You'll have some more weed competition, but when you come in there and burn it, you give it another jump start. It's a ground disturbance without destroying your existing stand. You're not tilling it and reseeding. You're just giving it a disturbance with fire to promote regeneration, which is an excellent way to do that. But as you can see here, my switchgrass right now, it's second week of June right now, and my switchgrass is sitting probably about 3 feet right now. Now, over the next couple months, it's gonna get above my head. As you can see, I'm sitting at 5'9" right now. This is 7 feet tall switchgrass. And it's still standing after the winter, after the springtime, after heavy winds, all of the different weather conditions, and it's still standing in June. So that just tells you how hardy of a plant this is and how great it is for cover. But as you can see through here, there's a lot of switch in here. It's a pure stand of switch. And this is excellent fawning ground, right? Because I've got old stalks sitting here. These does can come in here and bury their fawns in right when they're born, and it's excellent cover for them. At the same time, it's a great nesting habitat. I've got overlapping dying stalks of switch. These hens can tuck their nests underneath that mat of bent over switch, creating perfect habitat. Rabbits love this stuff. I'm always kicking rabbits out of switchgrass. Basically, what I wanted to get across is this is a very easy way to create cover in areas. It can be portrayed that switchgrass is kind of a finicky plant to get established, which not necessarily if you're doing it correctly. What we're doing is we're spraying it that fall, just once or twice, spraying it that fall. Then we're coming in here in January, February, March, and we're frost seeding. We're allowing that seed to work into the ground, that stratification process, and then we're just mowing and maintaining it. And then after year 5 on that initial planting, I'm gonna come in here, I'm gonna do a controlled burn. I'm gonna have my burn brakes, I'm burning into the wind. So if I've got a wind coming like this, I'm starting my fire on this side so it's working into the wind. So the wind that's blowing it back and giving it energy and fuel, I've already burned all that so it can't get out of hand on me. So I'm burning it into the wind so I can keep it under control and avoid any drastic problems. But it's very low maintenance when you're talking about any habitat improvements that you can do virtually at any time of the year. You can plant in the summertime too. We've done that before. We've tilled and then planted switchgrass and then just managed that with mowing. But the way I like to do it is I like to spray in the fall time just once, and then I'll come in here and I'll frost seed it, and then I'm just managing those weeds by mowing. And it's a pretty effective way to get a switchgrass stand established. I've got another ½ acre on the other side of the field here that's coming into year 3 right now, and it's starting to overtake pretty much all of those weeds. So I'm gonna have a really nice stand going on there. And then I've got virtually all of my food plots screened off with switch, 5, 6, 7 foot rows of switch. And all of this was broadcasted at the same time. I don't have a no-till drill. All of this is broadcast. So this is applicable to a lot of you guys. You can just go get a whirlybird spreader, broadcast this seed out, frost seed it, and you can get a switchgrass stand established pretty easily. All you gotta do is mow it, maintain that, and then if you're comfortable with it, if not, hire a land manager or somebody that has a burn boss permit that can come in here and manage that and burn that down for you so you can avoid getting that real thick mat that is gonna inhibit growth, and you wanna regenerate that stand that you've already got established. That's how you do it. So basically that's the rundown on how I get switchgrass established, why I'm using it in this location. It's the perfect setup. I'm pulling these deer closer up here to this edge so I can more easily hunt them, so I don't have to go as deep down in that bedding area. Because anybody that hunts these ridge tops and these bluffs knows that topography is the greatest form of cover you can possibly have. So if I can stay on the top and not have to go down the hill onto those bedding slopes where I'm exposing myself to get spotted or winded a little bit easier, I'm gonna do that. And anything that I can do to pull those deer up on this top versus down on that slope, I'm gonna do that. This is the perfect situation. There's always a huge scrape right behind this. There's a great rubbing tree right behind this stand. These deer love it in here. So that's my method of getting switchgrass established, why I use it in this situation, and how you can too. It's pretty easy. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'd be happy to answer. If not, my phone number's on the channel. Shoot me a message. I'll help you with whatever you guys need. And also, like, share, and subscribe if this video helped you guys at all. We're trying to grow this channel, reach as many people as possible, help as many people as possible become more successful hunting mature whitetails. Not necessarily just in the Midwest, all across the country. That's the goal here with this channel, help as many people as possible. Like I said, like, share, subscribe. If it helped you, I'll catch you guys on the next one.